I'm really keen to dive into regenerative leadership as an orientation that not just deals with the food and the regeneration of nature, but the regeneration and the healing required for us to come in syntropy with life, with each other again. Yay. Wow. So wonderful. And it's wonderful to hear these words, Syntropy being the missing link. And yeah, just a small synopsis on Syntropy. It's the tendency of life to come together. And so there is a coming together of life in collaboration to co-navigate and coexist in a symbiotic orientation that naturally creates more of itself. And the Western mentality that has been artificially induced for the sake of creating profit and also control has been designed to be based on scarcity and lack, which has been then become adopted in our human ecology as a, well, this is just how it is. And that is, quite frankly, when we start studying nature and we study the patterns in nature and we study, therefore, life, and then we recognize that we as humans are also life, and that these strategies in nature, us being mammals, first and foremost, we are not having a very intimate relationship with life, with nature, through what we consume, what we breathe, what we drink, but we also have it within us to navigate and really master the navigation of co-creating in syntropy with life, in these natural strategies that are there, that goes beyond looking at how can we make things better for humans. It's a regenerative approach to engaging ourselves as human beings in projects that are regenerative and regenerating. And so this includes regenerative leadership, regenerative ways of leading community initiatives, and making sure that our humanitarian orientations and the projects have a regenerative function. And this is where we're now coming out of. And I feel that this is a significant time where we are at, is that we've come out of an age of sustainability. And that narrative has grossly been hijacked and limited in its scope. It's more than anything a great way to greenwash whatever it is that a business is doing. And for as long as things aren't regenerative, and for as long as enterprises aren't able to show that outside of them generating profit and doing good in a community by providing services, there is a quadruple bottom line to look at, as what is it regenerating in the natural world? What is it regenerating in terms of people finding truer happiness? Let's call it that way, because the quick fix of consuming something or purchasing something with the idea to gain a sense of like, I'm doing great in the world, or I am progressing, in the past, from my observation, has come at the cost of nature. And that's very evident wherever we look around. I really see that the age where we are in, that there is what is called Web3 reality that is being talked about, and it's this metaverse world, and it's blockchain, and it's decentralized ways of doing things that is very different to the centralized government orientations and the centralized finance orientations that have been steeped in scarcity and the need for control in order to function. And we're looking at bridging that by looking at decentralized models of governance and self-governance as communities. But in that piece, software is really quite critical, because the means and tools or the operating system in terms of software, the legal system that we've been operating on, has been very curtailed and has been coming top down through a governmental orientation. And we're at a stage where we are actually equipped with the tools, the skills, the knowledge, the technology to actually create bridges that would free us out of the simple mind-based confines of centralized, top-down, hierarchical structures of putting new systems in place that are like slow as bejeevers oil tankers that are all operated and run by the big industries. And they don't want radical quick change. They don't necessarily want regenerative action because it's going to, in the long term, put them out of business. And that is just one prerogative that has been prevalent on the earth. It's up to us as humans to look at the resources within and look at the gifts and talents that others are and have been cultivating to see how can we uplift, how can we regenerate, how can we create systems through applying syntropic agroforestry orientations on producing really nutrient-dense food and medicine and so forth, and creating community engagement in that process. But we're also able to look at addressing the larger fabric of our human ecology. And I would really love for Darren to share with us what some of his insights, what his sense of direction in this time that we're in is, and how technology from his vantage point can be leveraged so that we don't have to sit around and wait for people on their own accord kind of learning new skills in the technological realm, while they could just be leaning in and partnering with others that have all those skills and make the regenerative movement speed up much quicker. I've explored how language has really confined our ability to perceive reality in the broader context of what life is actually doing. And Syntropy as the lens to view that through has been really significant, because it kind of replaces the old lens and says, well, that's all nice, these belief systems of what's right, wrong, good, bad, and what weeds are and what weeds are not. But what is life actually doing? And the study of that has really elicited that life is continuously focused on regenerative orientations, and they are actually abundance orientations. And yeah, it's the human way that we have engaged with nature and with ourselves and with our inner gardens that have led to depletion. And the beautiful thing about hitting a certain rock bottom in one's own health, in one's own life, or hitting the flat wall at 100K an hour because you've just spent 30 or 20 years or 10 years doing something that actually wasn't in alignment with your beingness, and that crash moment happens. The regenerative ability that is inherent in our human system, in nature's life ways, is so forgiving, and it's so beautiful to witness that if we start leaning into that within a generation, we can indeed regenerate. And this is where that word sound, regeneration, I apply not so much to this idea that we can regenerate, but that we can be and that we are in the position to operate in an orientation that we are the generation, old, young, middle-aged, just coming out of university. We each have the ability to awaken each other, that we can identify by being the regeneration, not generation Y or Z or X or whatever the centralized mechanisms have kind of let out and promoted as a demographic or a time frame of humans all being able to be funneled under a one label. I think it's really relevant to disidentify with any of that narrative and ask ourselves, well, which generation do I want to be part of? It's already a fantasy to practice that I am a Dutch person, or I'm an American person, or I'm a Chinese person. Well, the cultural parameters that are enshrined through cultures around the world are given rise to language that allows people then to identify with I am this or I am that. But the reality of it is that we are humans, and to limit ourselves within being maybe identified with the idea that I am Australian, well, I am human, and then to identify ourselves within that context under a certain flag that we are part of a very small narrative of a generation that has come into motion and is then being preceded by another one or followed up by another one is very much limiting, because we put ourselves, Generation Y puts itself in the box for the rest of their lives that, yeah, I was born in the Generation Y. I don't know why. I have no idea why, but that's who I am. And when we identify with that, we limit ourselves ridiculously to a letter that means probably nothing other than what I can come up with. It is that it's people wondering why. And not necessarily wondering why in a constructive manner, but more in this like, well, I don't know why. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. And the reality is that life does matter. Our life on this earth matters. And if we choose unconsciously or consciously to align ourselves with regenerative orientations, our own life will start to come alive more. We will be able to carry a bigger load. We will be able to see problems from a perspective that will say, yeah, well, I'm just going to disidentify with that because I am here to be part of the regeneration. And that regeneration doesn't have any age parameters around it. It's not because you were born in the 1980s that you are now part. No, it's, are you on Earth? Yes, you are. Well, you get to be part of the regeneration, and making that available as a sounding out and as a choice, then everybody gets to ask themselves, well, I never really thought about, am I part of a generation? But I have always related to it like, well, you know, my generation, whatever that has meant, my generation from when I grew up, what if I would see myself as being part of the humanitarian regeneration, the generation of humans that kind of awakens from the lull and the noise and starts contemplating, what am I going to leave behind? What am I doing during my lifetime that is not depletionary, that's not taking and just merely sustaining me, but what are my actions? What am I dreaming into being? How can I become a regenerative leader? How can I become regenerative in my own life's health practice, in my well-being practice? And once we get into that, we want to start helping other people heal and level up and regenerate themselves. And why is that? Because that is part of the syntropy in humanity, is that we're simply wired to operate on regenerative orientations. And I think it's damn well time that we start making more conscious choices to saying yes to that. And once we identify with that it's because I'm here on the earth, I am part of the regeneration. Are you part of the regeneration? It poses a question to people that is like, I don't know, but I guess I could. Because there's no parameters. It doesn't matter whether I'm a woman or a man, or I'm this or I'm that, or my pronoun is this or my pronoun is that. Yes, I can be part of a generation that is here to regenerate our cultural dynamics, our health and well-being, the way that we serve our communities, the way that we look after the generating of true wisdom for the future generations, the younglings. How regenerative is our educational paradigm? And so for each and every one, looking at being part of the regeneration offers them an opportunity to say, I have gifts and talents to deliver my my life force and my dreams and my vision in service of the regeneration. And the beautiful, beautiful, most amazing outcome of this syntropic orientation is that when you start leaning into that, life starts leaning into you. And the exchanges that happen foster prosperity. They foster exchange that is up-leveling, uplifting, inspiring. And with that naturally come even more great ideas and come even more great collaborative actions that in the humanitarian sphere we can then start working on together, which inevitably generates more prosperity. It generates more richness in experience, in finance, in livelihood, in our natural environment being a richer experience. And with that, we can actually feel really, really great about ourselves working together, because we can then stand in the knowing that the earth that we are going to be leaving behind is one really worth picking up and really worth navigating through, because I know that there is a whole generation right now that is disenchanted, totally disillusioned, totally locked in and hooked into a cybernetic reality, because, well, pretty much the grown-ups have fucked this up, and I am just having to go through school until I finally can go and do something. I'm just gonna disengage until I turn 16, 17, or 18. Meanwhile, we have so much that we could open a doorway for the younger generation to see us lead regeneratively. That will naturally inspire them to want to become regenerative leaders for this new earth that is really ours to bring into being. And that's my contribution on this subject.